I love my boyfriend, but he supports Trump. This one I think is going to get a few people fired up. After Trump got elected, he said, well, what did he do that was actually so bad the first time? He thinks the hate against him is all just media conspiracy. Can I be in a relationship with someone who feels this way about a misogynistic person? I really want to obviously this question has come in from someone who's a listener, and I know that this is something that a lot of people experience, but I do want to expand it beyond just being Trump, because it's got to be like, what if you're in a relationship with someone who has different political views, or you discover that they really, really don't believe in some of the things that you believe in fundamentally?
You can absolutely have a wonderful relationship with someone that has different political views to you. The problem comes when it doesn't just become a belief and a thought process for them, but it's a constant point of contention, and you are constantly fighting, or they're constantly putting their views on. Or I'm going to use Trump for an example. If your partner came home and started throwing this sentence around of your body, my choice, if those politics have flown into your relationship, but that's not even a political thing. That's just like you're dating a fuckwit. But you can absolutely have very harmonious, wonderful relationships with people with differing views to you. In fact, sometimes I think it's important to have relationships with people with differing views. I feel the same way about religion. You can have a relationship with someone with a different religious belief. But as long as the discussions that you have around it, you're at the dinner table and you're talking about it, they're respectful, you're putting your point of views across, you're trying to understand where they come from, you don't have to agree with it. But I personally can't stand the way that our society is going, where if you have a differing view with someone, you feel like you need to cut them off, cancel them, and not have any relationship with them. I don't like that.
It's interesting because there's been a lot of people on social media at the moment, people who really come from that kind of like strong feminist stance of like, if your boyfriend particularly follows Trump or follows Joe Rogan, you need to dump them, block them, and like be done with them.
Which I don't agree with.
Absolutely throw your relationship and everything into a steaming pile of shit and set it on fire. Now, I don't not agree with it, and I don't agree with it at the same time. I sit in a land of Switzerland, and the reason for that is because it depends on how much you care. It depends on how much these things are important to you. It's something that only you can define, and I don't want anybody to make decisions about their relationship because people online are telling them that they have to care or they have to do something, vice versa, right? Because your partner might think, and in this question, I think it's pretty important to unpack. Your partner says, well, what did he do? What was so bad the first time? Maybe it's just media conspiracy. This is an opportunity for education. This is an opportunity for you to sit down and have a conversation with him and be like, hey, here are the reasons why I care. Here are the reasons why this affects me. Should it be a woman's job to educate a man? No, but this is not just a man. This is a boyfriend who you care about, who you love, who you want to be with. This is an opportunity for you to explain to him the world you live in and why this is important to you. And if he turns around and says, oh, I don't fucking care about abortion bans and I don't care about your rights and I don't care about XYZ, well, then that gives you so much context to decide whether or not this is the relationship you want to be in and whether or not your values are fundamentally different. But he may simply be uneducated and have heard something here or heard something there that sounded reasonable, and then he's made up a decision about something that he has the privilege to be uneducated about because it doesn't affect him.
Exactly. And the thing that we do is we hear, see, and hold on to things that affect us, and we put the other things aside. So if things like the abortion ban don't affect him, chances are he doesn't read about it. He doesn't dig any deeper into that. If you have this conversation with him, he might very well say, well, we saw unemployment lower under Trump. We saw the economy grow under Trump.
Totally.
He might just look at the few positives that affect him or that he has seen. Maybe it's the industry he's in. He might have no grasp of exactly the impact of Trump's decisions make on women or how they directly affect women. So I think, like you said, Laura, there's a conversation, but I think it's important for you to say, if he says that, I totally agree with you that people benefited in some way under Trump because they did. And people can't, and that doesn't mean I like him, doesn't mean I'd vote for him, but you have to be open enough to be able to see when something like that has occurred. But then you say to him, but did you know that this is what else is going on? Do you know this is what else, the effect that this is going to have on women? Do you know this is the flow-on effect that we're seeing right now? And he hasn't even actually officially come into term yet. Like, this is already what's happening. This is why it bothers me. This is why I'm afraid for the future. Things like that. I think having educated, calm, open conversations is really important.
Look, I mean, in saying that, I think it's so important, especially around things like abortion, because I know that it's something that a lot of women care about so deeply, but a lot of men are able to just cruise through life and they benefit from it existing. They have no concept of how much they benefit from it. But we as women know how important it is. And I had this conversation with Matt years ago now. And I was like, you also need to care about this as much as I care about it. Because if you didn't care about this at all, like the reality of our situation would be very different. Like I have had an abortion in the past. I've spoken about it widely. My life would be completely different. I wouldn't be with Matt. We wouldn't have the relationship we have. Because when I met Matt, I would have had a 7-year-old kid. And like my life just would have been on a different trajectory and it wouldn't have been the life that I chose for myself. You know, I know that people feel very differently about these conversations and I don't expect anyone to, to change anyone's views. That's not what this is about. But it is about explaining to men how they benefit from the things that are really important to women. And the problem is that the way that the internet is at the moment and where a lot of people get their information, there's a lot of very angry women on the internet. And I understand why. And I'm also one of those angry people. But men, particularly, don't listen to angry women. They listen to men. And I know that that just adds to this environment of absolute misogyny. But what I'm trying to explain is that we see it, we hear it, and we think like, how can they not be listening? How can they not hear how angry women are for these reasons? The very matter of fact is that they see it and they just kind of scroll past. They're not consuming that content because it's not being presented to them in a way that's palatable for them to listen to. I think it is a challenge if they are aware. That's when it's different. Like if they are very, very aware and they are very cognizant and they are educated and they have still made that decision, then I understand why it fundamentally differs from the way that you feel and the way and the things that you believe in. And that's when I go, okay, if you are so politically not on the same page about things that deeply fundamentally affect you, then maybe the relationship isn't right. And that's okay. You don't, it's okay to not see eye to eye with people and also to not want to build a future with them, right? Like that is a decision that you have to make, but it's only a decision that you can make, right?
Totally.
And it's only a decision that you make based on the things that are the most important to you, not on what's the most important to society. It's what's most important to you. And I really don't want anyone to kind of take what I said the wrong way because I worry that that people are going to be like, well, men should listen to women who are angry. And like, absolutely they should. I'm not saying that I think that there is a right or a wrong way about this. Well, there is a wrong way. I'm just saying what's fact. Like it just is not the way that men consume information. But they do listen to other men around them talking about the things that they believe in or the things that they like.
Yeah, but I don't want to consume information when a man's yelling at me either. Like it works both ways. That's not how you educate anyone. It's not how you get a point across. You don't go and abuse someone and get angry. If a man is ranting on the internet, I also won't listen.
This is going to seem like a little bit of a weird tangent, but kind of wait till the end and I think you'll get where I'm coming from. Back in 2020, there was a lot of conversation about vaccination, right? And there was a bit of research done essentially from scientists who looked into the best ways to convince people that vaccination was a good idea. Essentially, and I'm paraphrasing at best, but essentially what they found is that the way to change people's minds about anything, the psychology behind it, is to calmly educate them, to empower them to make their own decisions, right? And you have to be careful when you say education because it can be patronizing. So it was all about empowering them with information so that they could come to their own conclusion about anything. They basically found that anytime that someone felt degraded, that they felt stupid, if someone was having a tantrum, essentially, trying to get them to change their mind, not only would it not change their mind, but it would often push them further in the opposite direction.
Totally. Shame and pressure also.
Yes.
People want to double down on it.
And this kind of applies to politics as well because it's not actually about vaccination. It's about psychology. And I have actually been really guilty of this myself in the past. And I've learnt a lot this year, particularly about this topic of how to kind of talk to people about where they're coming from. Extrapolating that if he is someone who respects Trump, it means he's a racist, he's sexist, he's misogynistic, he's all of these labels.
Yeah, he's a bigot, he's whatever.
It's actually not necessarily true. It could be true, but it's not necessarily true. And I experienced this a lot when we were talking about the voice referendum. When someone had a different opinion to me, I automatically assumed that they were racist. And I actually have realized that that's really incorrect. And it's not fair to kind of label them with something so extreme because they had a different perspective on something. So kind of using that psychology is the only reason I wanted to bring that up is because what you're saying about these people who are yelling and kicking and screaming on the internet, it is scientifically proven that that actually doesn't shift the needle.
No.
If anything, it pushes people in the opposite direction. So keep that in mind when you're having conversations with people that you love and care about. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily apply to the internet because I think you get served the algorithm of what you're into anyway. I don't think that the algorithms of people who are having, quite hysterical reactions to the outcome of the vote in America, I don't actually think that they're reaching the other side because the algorithm already knows what side you're on based off of the content that you consume.
And this is the thing, like, don't get me wrong. I understand why people are angry and I understand why people are hysterical.
Yep.
But I don't think that that is the right way forward to take with your partner. And I think a really calm conversation around the why and taking a moment to educate your partner around why these things are important to you would absolutely be first steps before you make a decision that you can't be in a relationship with someone who feels different to you about something politically. That is definitely my thoughts. And I don't just mean romantic relationships. I mean your friendships as well. We are all going to be friends with people in our life who deeply feel different politically to the way that we feel. I have some very good friends who I do not believe in the things that they believe in. Fundamentally, we have very, very different ideologies, but we can show up and enjoy each other's company in other ways. I know that that's harder when it's a romantic relationship, but I definitely think that there has to be a lot more conversation that's done in a much calmer way, which allows people to potentially change their views on something.